Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. And welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I'm super excited to be here. For some reason, it feels like I haven't been here in a while, but that's just me. I have a great guest today and a great topic. So we're talking about franchising today, which I love. I was just telling the guest who's about to be on that everyone I've spoken to who's been, successful and loves the franchise world really loves it, like would not do anything else. And today's guest has been in it his whole life and I think feels that way. And we're going to have a great show because this is something that you may not have given a lot of thought to. And I really think it's eye-opening. I hadn't given a lot of thought to it. And the more I hear about it, the more interesting it becomes. So I am going to just tell you a tiny bit about Jeff Shafritz. If you're wondering whether franchising could be a smart way to diversify income or thoughtfully transition out of corporate life, today's guest brings clarity to a space often clouded by hype. Our guest is strategic franchise advisor Jeff Shafritz, founder of Franchise Guidance. With over 30 years of experience across multiple sides of franchising, including owning and successfully exiting his own fitness franchise, Jeff has advised hundreds of executives, investors, and career changers on making clear, confident franchise decisions without hype. Jeff, welcome.
Michelle, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this conversation. I feel like, I have had a couple other franchise folks on, and every time I leave the show really energized about this whole area. And I feel like it's a little like lesser known. There should be more out there. People are learning about entrepreneurship and they're learning about how to, be a professional in a company as an employee. But this is a unique sort of hybrid thing. Why don't you tell us a little about your history with it and what you have found to be so really wonderful about it?
Yeah, well, I love franchising because it is a hybrid. It's for someone who wants to own their own business, but maybe doesn't have the idea, doesn't have the time to start something from scratch, or, just needs a playbook to follow. And that's where franchising comes in. And I've been so fortunate to spend my whole career in the world of franchising. I started right out of college by accident, thinking I was getting into a sports-related business because I love sports, and ended up as a franchise sales assistant at the Athlete's Foot, and moved my way up and found franchising, and I love it, and been on all sides of the franchise spectrum. So I've been on the franchise development side for a specific concept. I've owned my own franchise. I had a fitness franchise that I operated. And for the last 20 plus years, I've been helping people who are interested in going into business for themselves find an opportunity that fits how they want to get into the business, basically, with the types of opportunities that would make them successful and what they're looking for.
I love that. And, business owners, it takes a certain type of person to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I think that's just a given. And I like the fact that with franchising, some of the heavy lifting, maybe you would argue a lot of it, I don't know, it has been done for you. And some of that is what was really hard when it comes to entrepreneurship for people to just get off the ground. Like, I feel like with franchising, you can build the momentum just that much faster.
Yeah, if you think about franchising versus starting your own business, just having the idea, but then coming up with a brand, marketing, who your customer is, how to market to that customer, the technology, the CRM system, everything is laid out for you, or should be, or you shouldn't go with that franchise probably. Everything is laid out for you so that you can step in, and yes, there's going to be a learning curve, but you can go to training and come out and start operating a business versus trying to figure it out. So
Yeah, and there's a lot to figure out. I mean, if you have a big team behind you from the beginning, that might be a different story. But the average entrepreneur has a lot of figuring out to do, and depending too on your financial situation, how much time do you have to ramp something up? So with franchising, what are some of the expectations for if you're leaving a job, maybe you don't have years and years worth of savings to keep you going for a while. How should people kind of look at that aspect of it?
well, I think there's a few. I work with all different types of people. I work with some people that want to keep their job and find a business. They've got some flexibility. I work with some people that want to leave their job and start a business and focus full time. And both can be great options. But if you're gonna start a business and go full time, even though the business is already laid out for you, it's still gonna take some time to build income. So what I do is I help them craft a plan to include income as part of the business expense. Basically, you want to make sure that you've got a year's worth of income covered as part of your business plan, so that you're not stressful that the business starts doing well, but you're not making enough money and you have to close it down. You don't want to go in undercapitalized. But yeah, there's usually a little bit of a time flow to profitability. And for people who can't afford that, who can't do that, I would say that's when you want to look at opportunities that would allow you to keep your job and build something.
Yeah, and then maybe leave your job at some point when you can. Yeah. Yeah, I like that the options are there, that you could do it either way. I'm assuming certain franchises are better than others for people who want to keep their job. And I do want to get into that. But before that, I want to go back to you. And, I feel like people who love what they do, it's what they do aligns with their strengths. I feel like people have certain natural strengths. I'm a big Strengths Finders fan. And so what do you feel were some of the strengths you had that sort of just aligned with the franchising world that helped you stay with it this long and be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. That's a great question. I first of all, I think different strengths for different types of franchises also. But for me, I love helping people, and I really like business. But I know myself. I'm not a great operator. I am very strong at business development. I enjoy business, talking about business, learning about business, and really helping people make a change in their lives. So it's been absolutely a perfect fit for me, this particular business that I do. I couldn't ask for anything else. I mean, it's literally a perfect fit. I'm not just representing one company, so that if I've got a great candidate who wants to do something, but my opportunity is not a good fit for them, I can't do anything with them. I literally can sit down and help anybody who's serious about finding an opportunity find one that fits exactly what they're looking for.
And when you say fit, some of us look for things that maybe aren't actually such a good fit. We think it would be good because we see it out there and it looks successful, or it looks fun, it looks whatever it looks like. But how do you assess what is a good fit for an individual?
Yeah, I take people through a process to understand exactly what they're looking for, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, where their skill sets and strengths are, what characteristics are most important to them, where their financial parameters lie. And we build a model based on everything. And then I go find franchises that fit that model. But you brought up a very interesting point. There are a lot of good opportunities out there that if certain people run them, if I ran an opportunity, it might not be such a great opportunity because it's not a good opportunity for me. And everyone loves talking about what's the hottest brand or what's the greatest new concept, or everyone loves eating here, this would make a killing. But the reality is, if it's not a good fit for you operationally, that's the most important thing, or it doesn't meet your lifestyle goals or whatever, you're going to be very frustrated with the business, and it's probably not going to go that well for you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because I do think, I mean, we live in such a like trend-driven world that I do feel like people are clouded by the success they see, other people having online or in real life or whatever. And, I just see that all the time, especially in like the digital world. Here's the formula, do this, you'll be successful like me. And, 99% of the time it probably won't work for somebody else. But so I think franchising is kind of fascinating that way because it is about a model and following the model. So the vision is kind of set. A lot of the operations are set up for you, which is great. So what is the piece of this that is the most demanding for people?
Well, I think also that depends a little bit on the type of business it is and the type of person it is, right? So the great thing about franchising is it is just a system of doing business that a company chooses as its growth strategy. So it could go across any business out there, really. And so just like any business, some businesses are have different requirements that you would need to be successful, and others have other requirements that would need to be successful. So I try to help analyze that with the individual. And I would say one thing from a franchising standpoint, I think somebody's got to be able to make decisions. They've got to be able to follow a system, meaning they're buying the franchise because of the system. Yeah. So you should follow that system. Of course, you might tweak some things once you know what you're doing, but go into it with the idea that you're going to follow that system, and that there's no certainty. There's opportunities that can greatly help you reduce your risk, but it's up to you to execute and make the business successful.
Yeah, the execution piece sounds like the critical component here, because
I would agree. I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss is the franchise. You want a good franchise, and it has to provide a good system, or you shouldn't buy it. But I would argue that you could take a great operator in a average franchise and have a lot more success than a great franchise and an average operator. So.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is super interesting because I look at myself as somebody who doesn't particularly like to follow a system. So I wonder if I would just be like the whole time trying to like have a better way to do it, So I think there are certain folks who are better off like not going there.
I couldn't agree. And I wouldn't even try to sell it any other way to somebody. There are people who want to create everything themselves. They want to come up with everything. They want to run it, a specific way. And those people who are true entrepreneurs might feel stifled or frustrated in a franchise. I would argue, though, that I would say more people, in my opinion, although I could be wrong, I've been doing this for a while, are looking to be their own boss, looking to create their own business for themselves, and have the lifestyle that they're trying to build and reach the goals that they want to reach. And they don't have to have everything created by themselves. They don't maybe even have an idea of what to do. They're just looking for a way to build a business, and they want to see that there's been some success in this specific business, and that there's a process to follow to be successful. So someone like yourself, Michelle, there's no question. Like you might be really frustrated in that. And when I work with somebody like that, I explain to them that it might not be for them. I'm not, you don't want to try to talk somebody into something and have a bad relationship with the franchisor. There's also, though, different types of franchises in terms of maturity levels and systems. There are some franchises that are a little more flexible, and there's some franchises that are really rigid. If you buy a McDonald's, you're not going to pick where your meat's coming from or change the color of the paint or anything like that. But if you got into McDonald's and you were one of the first 10 franchisees, you probably were able to have a little more say.
Interesting. So if you find them,
Yeah.
well, how do people look at that? Like, McDonald's is so tried and true. You can pretty much bank on if you do things correctly, you will make money. What about the newer ones? Maybe that are, I mean, is that a good place to get in? Or
I love that question because that is the $50 million question for everybody. There are pros and cons to both, and I love taking the other side of
yeah.
whatever whatever somebody says. Uh, I think if you want a business where everything is laid out and you just need to execute, and there's nothing that you need to do but execute, you might like something like a McDonald's. But if you have a little creativity, if you like the idea of helping to create something, you get in early, you can pick up the phone and call the CEO of the franchise. You're not going to pick up the phone and call the CEO of McDonald's. I think an emerging brand is a great fit for a lot of people because it actually still has a system, but it's got a little more of an entrepreneurial feel for it.
That's really
And there might be better territory availability. There might be all kinds of things. The risk, the negative, and this is where I could go the other way. If you're the type of person who wants to be able to talk with franchisees that have been open for 5 or 10 years and understand the economics from their perspective of what it looks like, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, they might not have any. So you have to be comfortable making a decision without having that data, basically.
Yeah. Interesting. I never thought about that before, but that is a very interesting aspect of this. So depending on the life cycle of the franchise, you could be looking at different things. But so, I mean, the obvious question, but what are some of the really hot, great franchises out there?
So I love emerging brands, and I like them in all different categories. But I would understand why somebody, it's tough for them. But I think what you're seeing right now from what is hot or what is emerging that is kind of new categories that I think has a good long-term staying power is longevity and wellness. There are some companies coming out that you don't even see them today because they're selling a lot of franchises, but majority of them aren't open yet. That in the next couple of years are going to be huge concepts, and there's so much money being spent now on longevity. It's really an interesting place to be. But I also love the boring businesses. I love the service-oriented, blue-collar businesses. And in those businesses, I feel like the maturity level isn't as important, and sometimes it's even better if you got newer technology, newer systems, newer ways to do business. And there's some really interesting opportunities out there in that industry as well.
Can you tell us a few examples?
I can, and the interesting. I'm not going to say names because I don't want to do that. But there are most people think of franchising as a bunch of fast food restaurants, and there's so much more to it. So when I talk about boring businesses, like one of my favorite businesses right now, they basically fix a whole bunch of things in commercial kitchens, and it almost becomes like a route-based business, and they focus on all kinds of gaskets and hinges and just things that people don't realize that goes on. But there's inspections that are typically quarterly or semi-annually, and they have to pass these inspections. And ultimately, there's not a lot of players that are systemized and have great customer service and what have you that are showing up and helping these commercial kitchens. So there's a huge amount of business. People would overlook that because it doesn't sound like super glamorous, but it's a needed service that every commercial kitchen has to have.
Yeah,
basically.
I love that. That's a great example of something nobody would think about, and those. I mean, that was the interesting thing as I started to look into franchising. I realized, they're franchising like businesses in every area. It's pretty wild. I didn't think about that. Services, products, you name it. And I like what you're saying because I feel like the trades, whatever you want to call it, I call it the trades, but the house plumbing, electrical, home repair, all that stuff. Um, that's a good area for people to go into, especially today, if for a lot of folks. Uh,
So I look at those businesses, and actually, there's a lot of franchises that I think fall into this category. But how is AI going to
right,
affect
right.
everything? And I'm sure there'll be robots that can fix everything, but I feel like that might be at least a few
Yeah.
years away. Where I think there's a lot of white collar, you know, mid level, lower level jobs that are going to be able to be done by AI. And so when I look at the scope of what's out there, I think these blue collar jobs or blue collar businesses can be fantastic for if you're coming right now from the coding world and you need to, build a business, who knows what the job market's going to look
Right.
like, but insulation is going to be needed in a year. Flooring is going to be needed. Remodeling is going to be needed. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that might have been looked at, 10 years ago as maybe not as well thought of, I should say, as some of the white collar jobs that I think, in the future you're going to see that's where the money is basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know people in the trades now who make a fortune, so they make way more than the white
100%.
collar executives I know. But um,
100%.
but the interesting thing is, do you have to have a background with that? Can I go buy, an insulation company as a franchise?
Yeah, the interesting thing about franchising is I don't want to say you want to be scared of that, but you as long as you're kind of comfortable going in and managing blue collar employees and looking at a house and having an intelligent conversation with somebody, you're fine. That's the big difference. You're you don't have to be a roofer to own a roofing
Okay.
franchise, but you have to be able to deal with the customers, manage the employees. I would argue that those franchisors don't even want somebody coming from the
Mhm.
trade because the person coming from the trade is really good at insulation, but can they run a
Right.
business? Can they scale? Can they grow? So most of the companies I work with, there are some, we call them chuck in a truck or, that those types of businesses where you're doing the work as well. But most of them aren't. Most of them are you're scaling a business, managing employees, putting more trucks on the road, those types of things.
Okay. Yeah, there is a lot of business skill that's needed to make this work. Especially, I want to get back to the whole employee leadership kind of discussion here. But um, okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Jeff to talk about more interesting things about franchising. So stay with us. Have you ever had a money or career question you really wanted to ask, but didn't know who to go to or just felt uncomfortable even bringing it up? You're not alone. Talking about money can feel intimidating, even scary. And that's exactly what I'm trying to change. That's why I created a free virtual coffee chat, a casual, no pressure 20-minute conversation where you can bring one thing you're wrestling with and we'll talk it through. No judgment, no jargon, no sales pitch, just clarity, ease, and a real answer from someone who gets it. If you've got something on your mind, don't sit in the confusion. Book a spot at limitfreelife.com and let's sip and sort it out. So, okay, so this is something that I think um, is, potentially, I think it's a big thing to think about if you're considering a franchise, but you're the man, so you tell me if I'm right or wrong. But one of the biggest things is hiring people and leading a team and getting everybody to see the vision and to be, working at their best. That I feel like is a tricky piece for someone who's maybe leaving a job where they haven't had that situation. They've been behind a computer on their own. I don't know. It could be any situation. But when I think about franchising, some of the ones that I've thought like, this could be an interesting one, or I've seen them out there, particularly. I got really acquainted with franchises when I was taking care of my parents because there were a lot of caregiving agencies and home health and all kinds of things that I was interacting with. They had a bit of a hiring problem that I could see, and so I don't know. I mean, hiring people, the availability of people out there is pretty important to the franchise being successful. How do you talk about that? Think about that?
Well, I think, first of all, I think that's a great point. So you're spot on. First and foremost, is that something you're comfortable with? Because businesses all have different types of employee skill sets that you'd be hiring and amounts of employees that you'd have to hire. So that particular industry, which is interesting because it's booming again. There was a huge growth curve, kind of plateaued, and now there's another huge growth curve. But that business is almost more about staffing than it is about getting the business. There's so many people that need the help in that business, but people are going to go to the agencies that get the best caregivers. And so to me, somebody who would be really good owner in that business would be someone who knows how to lead people, who is comfortable hiring and managing kind of mid-level, minimum wage to a little higher than minimum wage employees, and giving them a great work environment, a reason not to leave for a little bit, if someone offers them 50 cents or an hour or a dollar more an hour, because you're giving them a great culture and of course paying them as well as you can pay them. But that is a business that I think is a unbelievable business that's challenging, but great leaders can really take advantage of. And that's a perfect example of one that I would love to own, but have a partner because I am not an operation person. I know that I would struggle with, 20, 25, employees like that. But I think there's a lot of people that would do great
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, interesting. So when you talked about the franchises in the longevity space and I, I think fitness is another one that you've mentioned that is a big one. I know you're in it, but that all sounds kind of fun, actually. I mean, do you find that people are also looking for, where can I enjoy going every day and that I'm also interested? I mean, I would think fitness, you get a lot of people who just are passionate about fitness. So, yeah.
You you do. And when I look at those two businesses, not everything is black and white, but in a senior care business, you have to build relationships with a lot of referral partners. So you want to be out and about doing that quite a bit. You have to hire and manage and train employees, and you have a lot of employees, and you want to make sure doing a great job for your customers and your employees. To me, that's more of a full-time job. But a fitness business, and I'm not saying that you're not going to put work in, you can hire a manager that has a lot of passion for fitness. You might have a lot of passion for fitness, and essentially manage managers, keep your job, or do some consulting or whatever, because you don't have to be in the gym from Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. You have to put time in. So I think there are some businesses that are much better suited for manager run versus full time. And if you were a fitness enthusiast and you either had a spouse who could run the business, or you wanted to keep your job and build something on the side, that's a perfect type of a business.
Okay, great. So as far as the financial part of this, what are some of the requirements? I mean, there's obviously a franchise fee to get in, and there's working capital that you have to come up with for the first year or two,
Sure.
or more. I don't know. So yeah, what are people looking at when they come and say, "Hey, I want a franchise"?
Yeah, so I work with businesses that range anywhere from about 75 to $100,000 total to $2, $3, $4 million,
For the
total,
buy-in, you mean?
and
Yeah.
yeah, and everything in
Okay.
between,
Okay.
right? So it's kind of like runs the spectrum. But let's take something like senior care, which we just talked
Mhm.
about. Um, if a franchise fee is 50 or 60 grand for the fee, you probably need another 50 or 60,000 in working capital, just to be able to hire and market and do what you need to do. And that might be all you need to open the business, right? If it's a storefront build and you have furniture, fixtures, equipment, construction, you could be $400, $500, $600,000 to open a business. You don't have to come with cash for everything. There's a lot of opportunities for financing. Usually you have to have about 25% in cash or liquid assets that you can put into it. And there's some interesting ways to access cash as well that are available that people don't realize.
And do you help people with that? Is that something that they can, do you give them some ideas for this?
Yeah, so that's all part of what I do. I have a lot of different resources that I provide to people. And listen, I'm not the accountant or the CPA for somebody, but I can walk through all of the different types of opportunities that are out there for you, and then put you in touch with the right people. There are companies though that just specialize in franchise funding, which is
interesting. Nice. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay. So there's the upfront fee. There's just having enough capital to get yourself going. And then what do you advise people? Do you advise them to take a salary right from the start? Like, how do they get this rolling so it, becomes real?
Yeah, again, I do think a lot of it is dependent on how they get into the business. If you're keeping your job, maybe you don't want to take a salary. You just want to start paying down debt or take money and roll it into your next unit. And it might even help you for tax purposes to not make money, to lose money, on the business as you're growing it a little bit. If it is your job and you need the income, then that's a different story. And what I would do is really figure out what you need to live off of for the first 12 to 18 months, and then just make sure that you include that in the business plan, whether it's financing for that, whether it's cash that you have available for that, or what have you, just to make sure that you're covered. And hopefully you don't need it. Hopefully, maybe the first few months you don't make any money, but hopefully, you start not needing, if it was 8,000 a month, you only need 7,000, then 6,000, then 5, but I'd rather see somebody plan for it and not need it than get themselves in trouble.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so what you do is you help people figure out what is a good fit. You help them identify the options and kind of go down the path. Is that correct?
Exactly. So I don't sell any. I know a little bit about hundreds of franchises, and I know if it's a good match. I know what they should do to investigate it to determine if it's a good decision for them to move forward. But I want them to work with the franchisors to learn about their business and speak with the existing franchise owners of the concept to validate that it's a good concept and would make sense for them. And so that's what I do. I bring opportunities, and then I teach and guide people on how to investigate the franchises to make an educated decision.
You brought up something really interesting that I actually had never really thought about, but it is up to the franchisor whether you get to do this or not. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, you just hand someone the money and you're a franchisee. But you have to be approved and everything. They have to want you. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, it's like you're on a date, basically. Both parties need to like each other to keep going, I guess. And I think that's a mistake a lot of potential candidates make, is that they're buying a car and they can just be as aggressive as they want and pick apart everything and trying to negotiate the best deal. And the reality is, it's a two-way street. It's like you're going on an interview. You want to learn about them to see if you'd want to work there, but they want to learn about you to make sure that they'd want to bring you in as a franchise owner. So, and the good ones really are tough to get approved.
Yeah, I would imagine. Smart on their part. How long does that process typically take?
Everybody's a little bit different, but here's what I tell people. You got to do a certain amount of homework, and how much time you put into that homework can vary. legally, you have to have a disclosure document in the world of franchising called the franchise disclosure document for 2 weeks. And you have to have a franchise agreement for a week. They could overlap, but realistically, you could go from start to finish learning about the concept, talking to franchisees. If you weren't doing anything, you didn't have a job, and
Right.
this is what you're doing, the quickest I think you'd go is like 3 weeks. But what I tell most people is it's probably getting into like 6 weeks to 8 weeks into the process. You've learned about the company, you've talked to a bunch of franchisees, you've put together business models, you've gone through the disclosure document. You get to a point where there's not much left to do. And you either feel like, hey, this is a really good fit, or I'm not so sure. And if you're not, well, I shouldn't say that. You're never 100% sure. But if you're looking at going, I don't think this is right for me, or I'm hoping there's something better out there, I would tell you to kill it. But when you get to that point, the last step in most franchisors is what's called a discovery day. And that's where you go out, you meet the team face to face. And I tell people, I want you to kind of be pretty sure it's what you want to do. I don't want you to go out there and just get sold.
Yeah.
So if you go out there and you've done all this homework and research and everything, and you're pretty sure it's what you want to do, and you have a great day, great. You know, if they like you, you like them, you'd move forward. If you get out there and something doesn't feel right, thank goodness you spent $500 and not $500,000 on a business.
Yeah.
And so most people take 6 to 8 weeks to go from start to finish and make a decision if it's the right fit or not for them.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. So, I mean, if people are listening and thinking, I want to learn a little more about this. I mean, can they reach out to you? How do you help people with that?
Absolutely. My website is www.franchiseguidance.com. You can, I guess, sign up on my website to have a conversation with me. You can email me. All my contact information is on there. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see if I can help answer any questions you have about franchising.
I think it's a really great option for people. I really do. I think people should look at it seriously as, especially, there are a lot of people losing their jobs. There are a lot of people who haven't spent any time thinking, what else would I like to be doing? And that's a whole process, really. It is not quick. I used to have a lot of people call me and just say, I need to do my resume. I got laid off. Well, how do you do a resume when you don't even know where you want to go next? Which is the case for a lot of people. So there is this process. And I think looking at something like franchising would be a good research project.
Yeah, I agree. And you said something very interesting there, which is what I talk to people about in my process. It's less about, hey, I saw this business, it's great, or what do you think about this business? It's more about what do you want out of a business? What do you want to accomplish? Like 3 years from now, if you found a business, what would it give you that would make you happy? And lifestyle, passion, finances, everything. What's most important? Once you know a little bit about where you want to go to, then it's a lot easier to find the vehicle to help you get there. But if you just start out, I'm not happy with my job, what about a Dunkin' Donuts? That's probably not the right way to go about it. The right way is to figure out what it is that you
Right.
want, and then let's help you get
Yeah,
there.
I agree. I think that process has to be slower than people like to get to the right outcome. But yeah, it's super interesting. There, we could talk about this all day, but I really just would like to ask one more question. What's the exit plan for most franchisees? Is there one? Is that important to have? We didn't even talk about growth and acquiring multiple franchise, operations, which is a whole other area. But maybe you'll come back and we'll talk about that at some point.
I would love to come
Because
back and
we've
talk
all
about that,
heard
'cause
that's where the big money is. You can't own one, so it's another whole show actually. Because
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of is, again, when you know what you're trying to accomplish, but if you want to scale something meaningful with a really nice exit strategy, the reality is multiple units and growth is going to be very important. And just like any business, the larger you scale it, the more you're going to get for it. The bigger it is, probably the bigger the multiple will be, depending on what it is. But everyone's different. So if you are just looking for something to kind of replace your income, there are opportunities that might be available for you. If you're looking for something that you really want to build meaningful equity and build something that has substantial value down the road, there's opportunities for that. And just like any business, you're able to sell your franchise. The only caveat might be the franchisor has to approve the person, just so that they're bringing in somebody who's capitalized enough, or it's not an awful fit. But other than that, you sell it like any business.
Yeah, in most regards, it is like any business from what I'm gathering from this conversation. I mean, the beautiful part of it is that the model is set, that is kind of tried and true. And there's some marketing that's already been, the bane of most entrepreneurs' existence, in my opinion, has been taken care of.
Absolutely. And there should be, there's the initial training, there's the system, but then there should be support on that system. There's, you have issues and problems and concerns or questions or new products, new services. Instead of you having to focus on that, you can focus on operating your business, and the franchisor can focus on that stuff for you and then assist you with things as you need them. And the other thing that's neat about franchising is, but people don't think about this enough either. There's a bunch of other people just like you that bought the franchise. So along with the franchisor, that you can get support and what's working and what's not working. You build relationships with the other franchisees, and I tried this and it didn't work. I tried this and it did work. So you have, dozens to hundreds of other people doing exactly what you're doing every day that you can bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, and the more successful all of you are, the better for everybody, because that just means that franchise is growing and more popular. So, I can see where it could be a real collaborative kind of effort. So, well, we are out of time, but I am going to just invite you to come back and do a part 2 on this one of these days. So that would be great. It's been really interesting.
Michelle, thanks so much for having me. Again, if anyone has any questions about franchising or you're thinking about wanting to make a change, I'd love to talk with you. And again, you can go to my website. I would love to come back and talk with you. And anytime you want to have me on, I'm here.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been really, I hope it's kind of heartening for people to hear, that this is an option for them. Okay. Well, we do have to wrap up, but thank you so much for being here. We loved having Jeff on the show, and love having you, the audience, listening to the show. So please like, share, leave us a review. All of that helps us to bring great guests like Jeff on the show. So thank you so much. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week.